I'm Shea Proulx, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to a special edition of the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. These podcasts are dedicated to the exhibitors who would have participated at the Edmonton Expo 2020. Edmonton Expo is an annual convention that celebrates the fun of pop culture, including comic book artists, writers, and creators from across Canada and the United States. On this episode, I chat with Shea Proulx. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Shea has self-published 3 books, and her current book, ABC Monstrosity, has been published by Renegade Arts and Entertainment. She describes her work as a nerdy trip where memories and observations commingle to form sweet psychedelic spaces and visual narratives steal the show. She last spoke with us at last year's Toronto Comic Arts Festival. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Shea Proulx. So, Shea Proulx, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Well, I appreciate your time. What I normally do to start off the interviews is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
Well, I remember looking forward to the funnies in the paper a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes, but then it was just Supermarket Archies. And I did a lot of drawing, just trying to replicate that style when I was a kid.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, very influential, that's for sure. We met up last year at TCAF when you were talking about your book, Alice at Naptime, which was a great success. So I'm wondering, in general, can you talk about who or what inspires you to create your art?
Well, for that book especially, my kids inspired me. I had a lively art practice. I was in 6 years of art school before I started really thinking about comics and about narrative, and I stumbled into this practice of having a lot of images that sort of got traced and repeated and building these visual narratives as a visual artist. And so becoming a writer, author kind of developed out of that. And yeah, I had kids just as I was finishing school and starting to really think about more concrete story ideas that I could sort of pitch and tell people about. And yeah, I had a 2.5-year-old when I started drawing ABC Monstrosity, and I was pregnant with my second daughter a couple months into beginning the project. So I was really spending a lot of time in the kids section at the library and just thinking, yeah, how can I make a book that won't bore me when I read it over and over again to my kids?
That's definitely a good influence for sure. Now I'm talking to you and other creators under the context of the Edmonton Expo that unfortunately didn't happen this year. And you just mentioned one of the projects you were planning to exhibit, ABC Monstrosity. So I want to congratulate you. That's getting rave reviews. But I'm wondering, did you have anything else on the go that you wanted to promote, or was that the main book that you were planning to exhibit at that show?
I mean, that was the big new book. I did have a really exciting time creating art in a gallery setting this year, and I created a book that went with it that was more of like a more conceptual project called Grotto 13, and it featured a lot of like spacemen with their helmets exploding and then like just rays of light pouring out underneath. So it was a kind of a cool little alt comics project with a feminist review of Apollo 13 in the back and some talk about how I developed this process. And I also brought my kids into the gallery and had them draw on the same studio that I was drawing on, and then I took their ideas and I worked them back into the visual narrative that I created, and then I documented that work and sort of played it in with the essay that I had sort of explaining that process. So there was that other little thing that was going to be on the table. So I like to do these tiny self-published projects and then have the big published ones on the go at the same time.
Nice. Yeah. Can people see that somewhere online right now?
So I kind of ran out of time printing. Like I haven't seen my printer in a long time. Like I haven't been in Calgary and I haven't been going places. It was available with the Kickstarter that we did. We had a really successful Kickstarter for ABC Monstrosity, and I was selling my last like my last printed copies on there. And so I have a few more things that I need to get back from the publisher because I had him all set up in case we were still in quarantine when the Kickstarter was fulfilled. And now it looks like I'm going to be able to grab my stuff from him and add those things back onto my Etsy site pretty soon.
Cool. Now, I know you've been doing the rounds, doing audio interviews like this to promote your book, ABC Monstrosity, but I'm wondering how you're coping with this lack of physical exhibit opportunities compared to like last year when you had your book, Alice at Nap Time. Like, how are you coping with this?
I kind of decided, since I did a whole lot of school and I love school, I really have some influences that I've wanted to spend some more time going deep with that I've gained since being in art school. And one of those is Linda Barry, and I bought her Making Comics book at a talk. I got to see her speak, which was a total dream of mine. And
that's cool.
And it was great. So I've been really getting into that book and doing a lot of her exercises, sort of both to turn myself into a better educator, because her strategies for getting both kids and adults into comics are so wonderful, but they're also helping me kind of develop some different kinds of story writing strengths that I just, want to keep going with, keep developing.
Sure. That's a good recommendation. Absolutely. Now, we were talking about the Edmonton Expo, and you had mentioned before we started chatting that you had been there before. So I'm wondering if you have any favorite moments that you can share about Edmonton Expo.
Oh, favorite moments. The panels that I did there were really great. I was able to do a panel with Brenda Hickey and Alexander Finbow about parenthood and comics, because there's not a ton of parents in comics, especially moms. At least not ones that you can find at the conventions. It's harder for moms to tour and kind of get themselves out there with their work, even when they are making work. So I'm really looking forward to doing that kind of thing again. And I got to speak with panel 1 as well and be part of their talks there. So yeah, the panels were really nice. Missing that. Sure.
I'm sure, yeah. We'll get back to it. Want to switch gears slightly and talk about your creative process. Can you walk me through how you go from the initial concept to the finished page?
Oh, so I have kind of a unique way of working where I've been going straight to ink and then sort of tracing a lot with my practice for about 15 years. And when I first started doing that, it would be like very just whatever was around me. Whenever I got a chance to draw, I would draw. And then as the years went on, I started to just kind of focus in on certain kinds of narratives so that there would be a real story structure there as well, even if it wasn't all based in text. So with this one, I knew I wanted to do an ABC book, and I knew that all I needed to do was start with something that started with A, then a thing that started with B, and trace those things together, and I would have that structure. And for a long time, I really didn't like the idea of adding text directly to the page because it felt like I might make a mistake or I might ruin it. And then I realized I just wasn't finishing the book. So I finally made myself just do that. Now I do that all the time. Now I just kind of figure it out and do that straight to ink thing. But I've started to work in different ways and try to kind of grow and develop more traditional story writing skills as well, just to add and see how I can pull those different ways of working together. So
cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned tracing there. Had you thought about going digital at any point, or just strictly staying traditional the whole time?
I mean, I've been playing around a lot more with digital color. I have a book called An Enemy Closer that I've done just a small colored volume of, and with that I added the actual photo textures back into the drawing and then created layers so that they'd disappear and merge and do sort of the same thing in photoreal detail as I do with pen and ink. It takes a really long time to do it just that way. So yeah, I'm still playing around with how to get that kind of happening. I really like how fast I am with hand color though. Like I have some pretty quick skills with real pencils and real paint. So yeah, weirdly, even though for a lot of people digital is the thing that makes things just go fast and easy, I get bogged down with the potential for making things perfect, and then I kind of, yeah, sometimes my projects take far too long when they go totally digital. So
No,
yeah,
it's
and so
understandable. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's still
you go
fun.
with what you know, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Cool. Now we've talked about ABC Monstrosity, but I'm wondering if you have any other projects in the works that you can talk about.
Oh, in the works. Yeah, I mean, I kind of always work a bunch of different projects just in different phases. So yeah, right now what's happening in my sketchbook is ironically I'm kind of really working with a lot of stuff from the community, a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while now. Because I was finding that when I got out to all these different talks 2 years ago, I was, I'd take my sketchbook out, I'd draw people talking, I'd draw the audience, and I got really into the idea of maybe getting some of those people to write their own words. I started pulling quotes from people. Just I really love the art of comics and people like that sort of meta thing of people talking about how they get where they are. And so I'm looking forward to seeing people again and starting to get some more kind of interaction with that book. Yeah, I have a bunch of things I need to scan and digitally edit just so that they can be ready to print, because I do all that work myself too. So I do a ton of digital work. It's usually just in taking out the seam lines in my books and spreading the lines out to the edges of the pages. So lots of that to do with other projects. Yeah.
Cool. So it sounds like you're going to be busy for a while.
Oh, forever. Yeah.
Sure. Well, where can people find out more about these future works, what you have on the go, and what you'll be up to in the future? Where can people find you online?
Yeah, my heaviest level of activity is probably on Instagram, and it's just my name, SheaProulx. And then I'm on Twitter a lot too, and Facebook sometimes. I have a Facebook page called Shea Proulx Art Books, and that's the same name as my Etsy store. And yeah, so that stuff's always popping up.
Great. Great.
And a website too, Shea Proulx, www.sheaproulx.com. Yeah.
Super. Well, Shea, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I'm working with Renegade, and they've been really great. So if you want to get my books right now, they're the best place to go. They're a wonderful Alberta indie publisher. So that's Renegade at Arts Entertainment online.
Thanks to Shea for the chat. You can discover more about Shea on Twitter and Instagram at Shea Proulx, that's SheaProulx, and online at sheaproulx.com. Thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.